big fly design, Bob Popovics, has produced a number of techniques that really help with making big flies work properly. Another person that has added to that has followed Bob and is much younger and is a big musky fisherman from the south is Blaine Chocolate. So Blaine Chocolate has created the, you've probably heard of the Game Changer and the gummy minnows and a bunch of things. He's very innovative. He's dialed in with, he's got a brain that works with building flies. And then the only one of the three that I haven't met that I would like to is Brad Bone, who is from Wisconsin. So he's a backwoods North Country, fishes the upper Mississippi and the St. Croix River and that sort of area for muskies. And he's created a fly called the Buford and a few others, the 747, a whole bunch of other ones. But he fishes rivers, so I've learned a lot from him for river flies. And then Blaine has taken Bob Popovic's techniques to the next level, basically. So this hook is a partridge absolute predator. So I'm just going to do a single for this particular fly here. If you come up at the end, I will show you my selection of hooks that is a mix and match from the different aisles of fishing stores. So some of them are, say, partridge on them, and Gamakatsu, the B10S is a very standard, extra good quality stinger hook for any of your bass and muskie use. They've actually in the last year made it up to a 5/0 size now, which is awesome. And it goes right down to like a size 6 or 8, I think. And it works well. Partridge, their Predator series are good. There's another company called Eric's that make very good quality hooks for this kind of stuff. The challenge is, I was talking earlier here, is I challenge people to look at the red label Bass Pro Shops hooks and the Partridge Predator hooks. They both have a cut in the shank, so you could run plastics on them. Okay, so I should have left price tag. I always take price tags off because my wife might see them. But this one here, oh, I'm backwards here. So anyways, the Bass Pro Shop, this is about $7.50, $8. Look at how many hooks are in there. I didn't stuff that one. Oh, I'm still working backwards here. So it says 25 hooks. This is $8. How many hooks are in this package? 5. And I come up here and I challenge you to tell me what, close your eyes, and if I passed 2 of the hooks around and had you vote on hook A and hook B as to which is the best one, it'd probably be 50-50. They're very good. I'll also use Siwash hooks, very strong, very sharp, very good for musky type stuff, especially trailers. These only had 3 per package, but these need sharpened, but they have the right characteristics for if you just want a small hook with a big gap. And there's other Gamakatsu ones. Those are nice on the back end, 3/0 for a trailer. And this is a ballyhoo hook. There's no ballyhoo around here, but that's a deadly good musky fly hook. And then the only place I can find these is Canadian Tire. And they have, these ones ride upside down, and they have a longer shank up top here, so you can get a hook that'll ride upside down. Anyways, there's a couple things we can do here. One thing that the jury's out. I don't think it's cost me a fish, and it may have attracted extras. So there's one thing that I add to a lot of my musky flies, and that is a rattle. And you can do it 2 different ways. Well, you can do it multiple different ways. You can tie it straight to the hook, like you would with a rattling Murdich minnow. Or you can use shrink tube, works awesome. If you get the right size shrink tube from an electronics store. Or you can use Mylar braided tubing. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the rattle and I singe the end. I'm going to slide the rattle in there so it's in that pocket. Then I'm going to take thread. So with musky flies, I generally don't use 6/0 thread. I don't have an issue tying with 6/0 thread with a lot of bigger materials. A lot of people like gel spun. I don't, unless I'm tying bass bugs. I would use 210 denier Danville or UTC thread, or this is Big Fly by Uni. And the reason for that is I'll show you in a couple minutes here. So anyways, I put that rattle in, and I just tie it out the back of the bend of the hook. Is the first thing I do here. And so that creates a bit of noise. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to envelop it.
So the rattle is like a part? It's like a ball in there or something? Or it's just a...
So what it is, it's a bass rattle. So these are rattles that, like it's a Pyrex rattle. There's two little beads inside of a glass enclosure. And they're used by jig fishermen on the other side. So that's where I buy them. You walk down Bass Pro Shops aisles right near the end where they sell the great big treble hooks, the rattles and the worm weights. They're all there. Worm weights, same thing. They have brass worm weights. Really good weighting system if I'm using multiple shanks to put one of those weights in there. They sell cross-eyed cones, which are big, not quite as heavy as those. And I think you get 4 or 5 of them in a package for $8, or you get 14 for $4.99. So when you tie flies commercially, you think about things like that. So then I'm going to cover this up with a little bit of bucktail. And all right, my cheapness is going to show. Awesome head cement. Sally Hansen, hard as nails, $2 at Dollarama. If you can find the clear. If I've been there, you won't find the clear. So OJ, that used to work at Trout Fitters, he asked if I drank head cement, with how much of it, how often. Every time I was in the store, I'd be in there every week. I'd always have every time I bought materials, there'd be another bottle of head cement in there. He goes, "You drink that stuff?" Close. I may have inhaled a little bit too much of it some days, so just ask my wife about that. So I do have a fan in my fly tying room now. She made sure that happened. And then here, this is schloppen. I'm going to do a schloppen tail on this one. Big fly fiber also works. You have to use it a little bit different. One thing that I have learned about using schloppen is the flies that look the nicest don't always swim the nicest. So the fly that I'm going to tie it will not be one that someone would buy immediately if I gave them options to buy it off the shelf, because it's going to look a little bit. It's going to look like I cheated and skimped out on materials. Okay, because everybody knows that when you tie a normal deceiver, you have to use a minimum of 4 feathers out the back on your deceiver, or else it's not a deceiver, and you're getting ripped off if there's not 4 feathers there. There's only 2 feathers there. It wiggles way better. Less is more. So there's a tail. It's got some flash to it, and I'm going to add to it a little bit later. But part of this is it's skinny at the back and it's going to wiggle. Now what we want to do is we want to start building some strategic bulk. So I've cut a chunk of bucktail off here, and then I'm going to clean it out with my handy dandy, another dollar store special, the mini wire brush. Can't show you that on film, but I just use the wire brush instead of a comb to comb out the butt hairs. And then I'm going to give it a haircut to square it off. And then you're going to say, "What are you doing, Steve? That's not how you do it. You tie in bucktail. That just looks horrible, doesn't it? Why would I do that?" So this is one of the Bob Popovic's techniques called reverse tie in bucktail. And I've secured it in there, and now I'm going to reverse it. And this is also why I'm using big fly fiber or big fly thread instead of 6/0 uni. I could do this with 6/0 uni. I could, but I would be here all day doing the next thing, which is I've kind of spread it around the hook, I've preened it back, and then I'm going to build a thread dam up in front of it So that requires building the ramp a couple times and then going in right at the base of it. Now you see that it's flared. I've got it at about a 60, 70 degree angle. I want it a little bit flatter for this first one. So I'm going to build up. And see how the bucktail is coming back this way. So I'm going to build the ramp, go up the ramp one more time. There, that's where I wanted it. Sally to the rescue. And that's starting to create some protection for the feathers in the back. And now I'm going through a well picked over grizzly saddle. And I'm going to pick two nice long feathers. Match them up for length. Get rid of the fluff at the bottom. And I'm going to leave a fair amount of stem because I don't like the fluff, but I like the length of a feather. And then I'm going to do something that makes life easier. These stems are round. They will twist if you don't flatten them. So I got some flat pliers, flatten the stems. They do, it makes a difference. Having eyes makes a difference too in seeing them. So, oh, was I chewing them the last time? No. Now. Tell them my secrets. I used to do that. These came from KW Surplus. Guys can shop too. So now I want to make this pretty. So, how pretty do I want to make it? Let's just do a straightforward one. So I'm going to go with a little bit more bucktail. I'm going to start getting fancy with this here. And if you notice the bucktail, you don't notice where I've cut it because I grab it, pull it up, and cut it right at the skin. Even if I wanted this quite a bit shorter, I would still do that. It's just good material management, the same as flash. I really joke with the crew at KW because I tie with them quite a bit, that if they mess up my flash, that I know where they live and threaten them. Hollow threats, maybe. None of them have ever tested me. So I got two colors here. I'm just going to work that a little bit to get it bent. Pull the thread straight up and use your fingers to get it kind of in the position you want. And then I build a ramp again. So my evolution with them is I used to want to make them look nice and full, and they looked great, and they swam like crap. So now I generally space things out a little bit, and strategically, just to get them to keel better, I'll often trim the one on the bottom tighter and then leave the longer butts of gray here on the top. That will help with flotation as well. And that's the way that one works. And I alternate, and I leave a bit of more space. I could go tighter, that would make it more dense. So I'm just basically giving myself a little bit of room between each bunch. And then I often alternate between feathers and flash. So I can get fancy with flash here. What color flash do we want on this one? I use the purple at the back. Let's do this pearlescent with a little bit of crinkle to it. Two wraps, a little tug there to give it a little, so they're not all exactly the same length. Fold it back over. Oh, my side looked better. Your side looked horrible. And we'll get rid of anything we don't like in a little bit there. Okay, I'm going to do another clump of that. So generally, once I go forward on this taper, if I tie in at the front of the taper, that's usually about where I want it to be. I'm going to go a hair thicker on this clump. And a rotary vise is helpful for this. As an entertainer, you're supposed to make the people watching feel good, right? Isn't that the way it works?
Successful.
Yeah, I won't have room for that. So I'm getting to the point on this fly where it has a wiggly tail and it's got bulk in front of it, and then a bulky body. It's going to swim fine. Like once I get this back, you're going to get a nice action on this. The last thing you need to determine is what type of head you want on the fly. And from the ones that I have up here, there's a few different options. And there's reasoning behind each different option. So one of the ones that there's this fly here has a nice clean looking head, and what that is done with is very similar technique, but with but using craft fur. So it gives a really nice smooth look, looks great in the water, has a nice little bit of pulse, pushes, it'll give a little bit of wobble to the fly. That's one nice option. There's another option here. This is a tighter one. This will have less action, more of a jerkbait darting action, and that just uses flash blend. I could use bucktail for the same thing, and it's basically just in a straight plane. This one here has a little bit more aggressive straight plane flash blend head, and it does get a bit of a side-to-side wiggle to it. Then there is, this is the body braid, where you tie it on and back it over. It's durable, it lasts really well, and it casts nicer than most of them, even though it's big and round. And it does give a fly a side-to-side darting action, similar to like a Zara spook or something.
Stop the braid from fraying.
Right there. And then this is the Brad Bone with, I sell flies at one of the stores, the one in Guelph. He won't buy the flies that look like this. Where is the one? Yeah, this one won't sell, according to Ray. No eyes on it. Need eyes on a musky fly. But this one will, because it's got an eye on it. All right? If he's buying them, I'll put eyes on him. I'll fish that one though. I'll fish that one, no problem at all. That's a nice looking fly. So, and that's the Brad Bone Buford style head that is created with bucktail, and it gives it a nice wobbling, roaming kind of action is what I call it. And I'm going to look through my tickle trunk here and see that I do not have any gray and white of anything except bucktail. So we're going to do a Buford head on this fly. And then I'll do a smaller one with I'll do that body braid on a smaller fly real quick too. So there, we're ready to start the head. All right. Oh, two-tone heads, they're a bit of a pain, but that's all right. You guys are worth it. Oh, do you want? I'm doing a fancy one today, aren't I? Am I doing a fancy fly? And grizzly hackle, I don't know what says fancier and more fly fishy than grizzly hackle. So normally you use this for mayfly wings, or you would use this for your hackle for your dry flies. No, this is front fins on this pattern here. And that'll give it a little bit extra wiggle and jiggle. And they'll swim since they sit out so nice there. Now with the head, I generally try and go into this part of the bucktail. It's a little bit easier to stack it, and it flares better, a little bit closer to the body. And I go a little bit thicker, but I still get rid of the underfur. Still get rid of the underfur, square up the ends. And when I tie it in, I want a collar, but I also want it to sit up. And I can do the same with white on the bottom. And big fly thread is not quite as nice as gel spun to work with here, but it still is more than strong enough. So I usually go halfway in for a wrap, and then I put it. There it is. And there's a problem with these hooks. Hair packers don't work on big-eyed hooks sometimes. So I can use my fingers instead. And these heads are not your typical muddler head or your bass bug head. You do want them intentionally loose. They're not supposed to float the fly. They're just supposed to create bulk to help the fly swim. They create resistance that makes this wiggle and makes the fly dart left and right. The second bunch, I usually try and match up butts, put the tips out in front. Don't have a lot of real estate there on the hook shank, so I'm going a bit thinner on this second clump. One whip finish is good. 3 10-wrap whip finishes is way better, isn't it? And I'm a little aggressive with the Sally on this. I don't mind getting it into the deer hair bit as well. And then I generally do, I would be a horrible barber, but I'm good with this. I just go pull it up, cut it off at one level, do the same on the bottom, pull it down, cut it off. Then I do the same out the sides. Would anyone hire me as a barber here yet? And then I just spin you around, and I just snip as I go around. And these heads are supposed to be messy. There's a bit more of a gap in that side than I want, but once it's wet, it'll fish just fine. So that's a fly that has a hook that will hook a big fish. It's got perceived bulk that will smooth out when it gets wet. And the water currents, when you strip this, This head is going to make it turn one way or the other when you slow down, and the back end is going to wiggle like crazy. It's got a bit of modeling. It's got fins that flare, just enough flash to be attractive, but it's a barbless hook. So pass that thing around.